The proposed revision of the Unitarian Universalist bylaws identifies 6 values centered in love and inseparable from each other. On the 6th Sunday of the season, we call to the mind the 6th such value, equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Please join us in the opening hymn, 1007, There's a River Flowing in Our Soul. There's Good morning. I'm Barbara Martin, filling in today. My pronouns she, her, hers.
And I'm the Reverend Meredith Garmon, minister to this congregation.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Our church is located on land that has been home to various people in the last 12,000 years, including at the beginning of European encroachment, the Iowa, Sac, and Meskwaki. These lands were also home to saber-toothed cats, now extinct. As we enter this space, the ghosts of humans and other animals past are among us. Let us recommit to understanding the history of this land that we occupy and to owning our part in the work of education, reparation, and healing for all species.
We covenant to associate ourselves together for the study and practice of morality and religion as interpreted by the growing thought and noblest lives of humanity, hoping thereby to prove helpful to one another and to promote truth, righteousness, and love in the world.
This bond of union is reiterated in our mission to grow spiritually and ethically, to serve justly and love radically.
It's a blessing you were born. It matters what you do. Your experience of the divine is true, and you don't have to go it alone.
Today is the 6th Sunday of autumn. The hunter's moon was full last night, though I couldn't see it, and is now waning gibbous. All Saints' Day, or All Hallows' Day, is on Wednesday, which means All Hallows' Eve is Tuesday. Are you listening? Okay. Observed throughout the North America, Europe, and in recent years, it's been catching on in Japan. But in Des Moines, and most, but not all surrounding communities, Beggar's Night is on Monday, tomorrow night.
And next Sunday is the time change, back to standard time. The days grow shorter and the morning sunrise gets later and our mornings have been getting darker. But the time change in 1 week will move the sunrise an hour earlier, giving us more light in the morning. The sunrise will then keep getting later until the winter solstice, but it will not get back to being as late as it was this morning. So this next week we will have the darkest mornings of the year.
A special welcome to our visitors. And if you are here with children, feel free to keep them seated with you or take advantage of our petite play place in the back of the auditorium. You can read and play with toys back there with your child. Newcomers are welcome and invited to a UU Curiosity Conversation, something new here, the first Sunday of every month. Now, the next one will be next Sunday, November 5th, immediately after the service in the back of this room. So you please, I want to mention, you can grab your coffee and snacks and come in and join that group. No matter if you're new or whatever, if you're curious about the service or about the church. Please silence your cell phones during the service. On Zoom, you know what to do.
Our theme of the month for November will be interdependence. The November issue of Connecting is out. It is available just outside the doors. You can pick up your copy or find it on our website. Our connection circles are small groups that gather to explore themes and build relationships. It's a key way that we live out our mission to grow ethically and spiritually. If you're not in one, we urge you to sign up and become part of a group. There is a QR code on your order of service. We begin with the lighting of our chalice.
Please say with me our unison chalice lighting, words from Cynthia Landrum. Flame of our faith, call us into the community of love and justice this morning and every morning. Set aside the illusion of your past, the gossamer dreams of your future. Return to right now, this place, your body, your surroundings. After all, this is it. The point was whimsically expressed by poet James Broughton. This is it, and I am it, and you are it, and so is that, and he is it, and she is it, and it is it, and that is that. Oh, it is this, and it is thus. It should have been that. And it is them and us, and it is now, and here it is, and here we are. This is it. Please join in our sung invocation, and the words are in your order of service.
Good morning. My name is Birch Spick. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I am your faith formation and congregational life coordinator. This month, we have reflected on the deepening theme of justice. This Sunday, the last in October, is the Sunday before All Hallows Eve, All Saints, and All Souls Days, when many people remember their ancestors, those who have died and gone before us, who nurture and inspire us. Today, we will tell the story of one of our Unitarian Universalist ancestors who fought for justice.
So we have a justice story.
We do. It's the story of John L. Cashin Jr.
Witness for justice.
One day in Alabama in 1968, as farmers worked in their fields, a small airplane swooped into view. The farmers looked up wonderingly as papers fluttered out of the plane into the sky and came swirling down to earth all around them.
What were they?
The papers were flyers about the upcoming elections. Flyers with a picture of an eagle and the names of the candidates the pilot of the airplane liked the best.
Well, who was doing this?
That pilot was John L. Cashin. He hoped those farmers would vote for the candidates of the National Democratic Party, a political party he founded to help African Americans run in Alabama's elections. He wanted the farmers and everyone else to know that these candidates, if elected, would use their positions in government to make life better and more fair for the farmers, their families, and their neighbors.
So that was what the flyers were for, to let the farmers know about those candidates.
John Cashin was not only a pilot, he was also...
Let me guess, he was also a farmer himself.
Actually, he was a dentist and a husband and a father of 3 children, and he himself had run for mayor in his town, Huntsville, Alabama.
Did he win?
He did not win. Later in his life, he would run for governor of the state of Alabama.
Did he win that?
He did not win that election either.
He was disappointed.
Not much, actually. He had not expected to win. In those days in Alabama, African Americans had had little chance of winning public office. Even though about 1/3 of Alabama's people were Black, the Alabama state government had no elected officials who were African American. Very few Blacks ran for election. Very few Blacks could even vote in elections. They were kept away by unfair laws, sometimes called Jim Crow laws, and by threats of violence by white people who did not want their black neighbors to vote.
So, with so little chance to win, why did John L. Cashin run for mayor and then for governor?
Well, John was an activist who understood the power of public witness. And he made a promise when he was 11 years old to do whatever he could to get blacks involved in the political process and to speak out against the injustices that kept them away. Every time he put his name on a ballot and his picture on election posters and flyers, he caught the dreams of other African Americans in Alabama. Campaign speeches gave him a chance to make some noise for justice and speak out against laws that were not fair to African Americans.
Oh.
When he formed the National Democratic Party, John Cashin chose its symbol, an eagle, a well-known symbol of American freedom. With eagles printed all over their flyers, signs, and posters, the National Democratic Party made sure even blacks who could not read could vote for justice-loving candidates, the ones with eagles by their names. Soon, African Americans in Alabama were running for sheriff, city councils, judgeships, and the National Democratic Party helped get many of them elected.
All because John L. Cashin was a witness for justice.
He certainly was, and his witness mattered. But Cashin did not have to witness alone. His family and his church helped.
And what church was Cashin a member of?
He was a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Huntsville, Alabama. That congregation and many other UUs and friends joined him in his work. They came to his rallies, made their own speeches to support him, and helped him raise money to run for elections. Like John, they believed that to witness against the wrongs committed against African Americans was an important way to show their faith.
I think they were right about that. Witnessing against wrong is an important way that we live our Unitarian Universalist faith.
I think so too.
So does this National Democratic Party still exist?
Over time in Alabama, more African Americans voted. More ran for public office and won. As more African Americans became part of the Democratic and Republican parties, John Cashin's National Democratic Party was less important for public witness, and it was dissolved.
Ah. And John Cashin today?
He died in 2011. We can be a new generation witnessing for justice, following in his footsteps and in the footsteps of so many who have gone before us. Every time we speak up against a wrong or support people to speak up for what's right for themselves, we are part of John Cashin's legacy. He witnessed for justice he wanted to see in his community and our nation, an America where everyone's vote is counted.
Witness for justice!
We'll sing the children, kindergarten through 4th grade, out into their classroom today with the children's benediction printed in the back of your teal hymnal.
la primavera que anuncia su fulgor. Toda flor silvestre la maya el cuneamo, toda manifiesta la gloria de mi Dios. Toda flor silvestre la maya el cuneamo, ya quisiera hacerlo en forma del cual mi Dios. El cookie se alegra, se siente muy feliz, canta en su alabanza, cookie, cookie, cookie. El pitiri canta, la trina ruiseñor, Juan alegremente alabanza al Creador. Como se alaba en toda la creación, toda manifiesta la gloria de mi Dios. Como se alaba en toda la creación, yo quise hacerlo en forma del mi Dios.
Join me, please, in a mood of meditation, prayer, reflection. Dear ground of being, reality of joy and of pain, there is in each of us what we might call evil, though perhaps we will understand ourselves and others better if we call it a drive for power or control. And I am asking, what if it were me? What if it were me who were losing family members, killed by Hamas or killed by Israel? What if it were me struggling to make a homeland founded on principles of democracy, yet realizing that if we were open, we would soon be outnumbered and outvoted? What if it were me, dispossessed of a homeland and struggling to aspire to get one back? What if it were me that were dying? What if it were me that were killing? And of course, in all those cases, it is me. For I am the one that suffers. The grief is mine, the pain is mine, the violence I commit. We hold in our hearts this awareness that we are each other, that everyone is us. And yet at the same time, here we are, simply Unitarian Universalists of Des Moines, Iowa, USA, wondering what is ours to do. How can we be agents of compassion and peace? We don't know, and yet we do know that we aspire to be. Our hearts yearn to find a way. to be bringers of peace, builders of compassion, facilitators of a nonviolent way. We hold in our hearts also today those of our church community. Barb?
Good morning. I'm Barb Glass, member of the Pastoral Care Team. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. As a community of human hands, human hearts, inclusive also of beloved non-human animals among us, we come together to share our laughter and our tears, and to bear witness and minister to one another as we struggle with life's sorrows and celebrate life's joys. Barb Klubel's husband, Jan Speck, has been diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a bone cancer. For several weeks, they have been back and forth between Des Moines and the University of Iowa for testing and treatment, which will continue for at least 6 months. Your healing thoughts would be appreciated, as would cards to their home address, but no phone calls or emails, please. Jim Bush has been in the hospital with 4 fractured ribs after a fall and will be going to a rehab facility when he is dismissed. He's not ready for visitors, but would welcome cards of cheer. His sister is here to help him and will deliver the cards from his home to him. Alma Hatfield is still awaiting knee replacement around Thanksgiving and is homebound until then, has a lot of pain relieved by visitors. If you can't visit, give her a call of support. Just a reminder that the celebration of life for Michael Lauer will be here on Saturday, November 11th at 1 p.m. If you need information, please speak to Laura Berardi or any other member of the pastoral care team. Let us now share together the names of anyone we know who could use some special care and attention. You may call the name out loud or type it into the chat. As we share these names, may the love of this community hold them all. Mike. May the light of our community shine on the broken places of the world. May the work of our hands and hearts support, aid, and comfort all those who hunger, who thirst, who cry out for justice, who yearn for peace. May we never look away when we are needed. May those who are grieving be comforted. May those who are tired find rest. May the broken places be healed. May those who are filled with joy and laughter be abundant. We light 3 candles, one for the joys and sorrows shared aloud, one for those shared in writing, and one for those held silently among us. All of these we hold in our hearts for a moment of silence. Amen and blessed be. Our song response today is number 102, Comfort Me.
Andy Walters, on his blog, describes what he calls my spiritual atheism. As a spiritual atheist, I mean that I reject the supernatural, but affirm the reality and value of what most people usually mean when they say the divine. The divine is transcendent love. Transcendent love is valuing others' interests above your own, practicing respect, humility, compassion, and altruism, for example, is intensely gratifying. It is the divine, the part of me that transcends my ego. Second, by divine, people also mean inner peace, being unafraid of what is, has been, or will be. When I experience it, I am flooded with a sense of all rightness with myself and my circumstances. Although it is a sense of acceptance, it does not rid me of a desire to better myself and my circumstances. Awe is the final component of what people usually mean when they speak of the divine. Divine awe is a sense of utter astonishment and wonder at the mystery of existence, the degree of awe that can come from observing the mystery of existence. For thousands of years, humans have mapped out the divine, and many have explained it in terms of the supernatural. What the advent of modernism, however, with that language no longer makes sense. But that doesn't mean that the divine isn't real. It only means that we need a different vocabulary to describe the same reality, and I call it spiritual atheism. Here's a second account, this one from a YouTuber who identifies himself as a Hugman. It is from his video called My Spirituality as an Atheist. I'd have to consider myself a spiritual person. I'm not talking about some ghostly, ethereal soul inside my body. I'm talking about the essence of human, the action or ability to see beauty, to feel wonder, and to be in awe. The grand Tetons, a pile of stars, still and perfect. At times I can be so overwhelmed by the sensation of being alive that I cry or laugh or scream or just breathe deeply. Being humble is simply the feeling of recognizing the reality of one's small significance to a universe so massive. Being grateful to be alive doesn't require a person to be grateful toward. I am one with the universe. I am as much the universe as a supernova, made of the same particles, governed by the same forces. I am genes that mutated randomly, then were selected naturally based on their success in survival. And I love apple butter and biscuits. I collapse in awe at the significance of this place. I breathe appreciation for it all. I have to, with all my essence, with all my spirit. And now for the offering. Contributions to our Faith in Action partners by members and friends may be made by scanning the QR code on the back of your order of service. This year's partners are Free Store, which helps provide household items for families recovering from domestic violence and other trauma, and the Iowa Trans Mutual Aid Fund, which financially supports trans, non-binary, and gender-diverse Iowans as they access gender-affirming care. World Community of Peace, Liberty, and Justice for All begins in our hearts, in our homes, and in this, our congregation, as a place of peacemaking, fairness, and free religion. We are a people of faith called to build peace and justice, understanding that violence is any thought, word, or deed that treats a being like an object or diminishes a being's sense of value or security. We are called to the work of ending violence. Our congregation guides us to cultivating inner peace and the skills of compassion. The love and commitment we show each other have watered the tree of peace, liberty, and justice for everyone, everywhere. From the resources we have, then, let us offer a portion to maintain and build this community.
This is it. It is this, and it is us, and it's them, and it's us, and it's now. And here it is. And here we are. So, this is it. We return today to the first prong of our congregation's mission, to grow ethically and spiritually. 5 weeks ago, on September 24th, I addressed growing ethically. There is teachable cognitive knowledge that's a big part of ethics. Learning propositional knowledge is an important chunk of growing ethically. You can take a class or read a book. That's not all there is to it. Ethical growth also requires habit formation, the forming of the habits to behave at a higher and higher ethical level. And having the cognitive propositional knowledge doesn't mean you'll have the habit of reminding yourself of that knowledge at the moments when you need it. Still, cognitive learning of propositional knowledge is a crucial part of ethical growth. To treat people well, we have to know about their situation, what harms them and what benefits them, and they can't always simply tell you. So, Some study is called for if we are to grow ethically. To grow spiritually, on the other hand, is a rather different kind of study. To illustrate, let me back up and use this opportunity to tell you some of my journey. I'm the firstborn child of rationalist, humanist, academic parents. I grew up and I went into the family business, being a rationalist, humanist, academic. Mom was a physics professor, and later in her career, a chemistry professor. Dad was an English professor who specialized in 18th century British literature, the age of reason. And so I grew through childhood imbued with the implicit sense that the reason for being alive and on this planet was to do two things: learn stuff and teach it to others. I was in 4th grade in a small town in Georgia when I first heard the word atheist, and I asked what it meant, and shortly afterward decided that I was one. This was a scandal to my classmates. The scandal rather settled down after a week or so, but from then on through high school, I was the class atheist. Even so, apart from a few kids who were hostile and a few others who undertook to try to save my soul, my classmates by and large politely ignored our differences of theological opinion. If there was a disconnect between us because of religion, looking back, I would have to say that the distance making, the wall building, came more from me than from them. As a child and a teenager, my sad heart hardened and chose contempt as its protective strategy. I was not the sort of atheist that went for spirituality, did not use that word for my experiences, nor did I think in terms of sacred or divine or transcendent. I wasn't so keen on awe or mystery or wonder either. But life happened. I grew. And even though I was learning more and more cognitive knowledge and was working as a teacher to tell others about it, life and I didn't always seem to fit together very well. I sensed that somehow more joy was possible, more peace, a greater belonging. Life has such tragedy in it. Loved ones die, wars kill thousands, people behave cruelly to each other, whether it's petty street thugs or corporate CEO thugs. And life also has such beauty in it. The birth of a child, flowers in springtime, an act of kindness, my beloved's kiss. The tragedy and the beauty were more than my academic fields of study could comprehend. The development of spiritual virtues, loving all of life, even the hard parts, equanimity, compassion, may be entirely a matter of getting our neurons wired in a certain way, but the circuitry of spirituality draws on but is different from purely cognitive intelligence. It draws on but is different from the emotional circuitry. Native disposition, genetics, accounts for some of a person's spiritual qualities and virtue. Can you cultivate the spiritual virtues beyond your native disposition? Sort of. The term spirituality encompasses transcendent love, inner peace, all rightness, acceptance, awe, beauty, wonder, humility, gratitude, a freshness of experience, a feeling of plenitude, abundance, and deep simplicity of all things. The oceanic feeling Sigmund Freud spoke of, calling it a sense of indissoluble union with the great all, and of belonging to the universal. In moments of heightened spiritual experience, the gap between self and world vanishes. The normal experience of time leaves us, and each moment has a quality of the eternal to it. Symptoms of developing spirituality include increased tendency to let things happen rather than make them happen, more frequent attacks of smiling from the heart, more frequent feelings of being connected with others, connected with nature, more frequent episodes of overwhelming appreciation, Decisions flow more from intention or spontaneity and less from fears based on past experience. Greater ability to enjoy each moment, decreased worrying, decreased interest in conflict, in interpreting the actions of others, in judging others, and in judging self. Increased non-judgmental curiosity, increased capacity to love without expecting anything in return, increased receptivity to kindness offered, and increased interest in extending kindness to others. By orienting toward the elevated, whether in compassion, ethics, art, or experience of divine presence, we transcend the ego defense mechanisms by which most of us spend most of our lives governed. Psychologist Robert Cloninger and his team at the Center for Well-Being of the Department of Psychiatry of School of Medicine of Washington University in St. Louis sought a way to define spirituality more definitely, empirically, and measurably. Their 240-item questionnaire is called the Temperament and Character Inventory. It includes spirituality, they call it self-transcendence, as one of the dimensions of character. As Cloninger measures it, spirituality is the sum of three subscales: self-forgetfulness, transpersonal identification, and acceptance. First, self-forgetfulness. This is the proclivity for becoming so immersed in an activity that the boundary between self and others seems to fall away. Whether the activity is sports, painting, a musical instrument, we might sometimes lose ourselves in it, and the sense of being a separate, independent self takes a vacation. Second, transpersonal identification. This is recognizing oneself in others and others in oneself. If you've ever found yourself looking at another person or another being with a feeling that you are that other, their body embodies you, or if you've looked at yourself with a sense that your being embodies others, then you've experienced transpersonal identification. Spirituality involves connecting with the world's suffering and apprehending that suffering as your very own. Transpersonal identification goes beyond "there but for the grace of God go I." It's not that grace saves you from the unfortunate circumstance that others endure. Nothing saves you, because in fact you're not saved from those circumstances. If anyone is hungry, you're hungry. For the hungry are you. That's transpersonal identification. And third, acceptance. This is the ability to accept and affirm reality just as it is, even the hard parts, even the painful and the tragic parts. Spiritually mature people are in touch with the suffering of the world, yet also and simultaneously feel joy in that connection. Acceptance doesn't mean complacency about oppression, injustice, harm. Indeed, the spiritually mature are also often the most active and most effective in working for peace and social justice. They are energized to sustain that work because they can accept reality just as it is, even as they also work to change it. Because they are not attached to the results of their work, they avoid debilitating disappointment and burnout and are able to maintain the work of justice cheerfully. Because they find joy in each moment, they avoid recrimination and blame. They see that blame merely recapitulates the very reactivity that's at the root of the oppression. And together, add together your scores for self-forgetfulness, transpersonal identification, and acceptance, and the sum is your spirituality score. There you go. Here's the thing, though. It's not a matter of will, not a matter of volition. Spirituality is not volitional. It's not a matter of weighing the pros and cons and making a decision. You can't decide to be more spiritual or more spiritually mature. If you're low in spirituality, that is, as Cloninger finds, you are practical, self-conscious, materialistic, controlling, characterized by rational objectivity and material success. You can't wake up one morning and decide you're no longer going to be that way. It's who you are, And your own rational objectivity will very sensibly point out to you that you don't even know what it would mean to not be that way. What you can decide, what is a matter of will and volition, is whether to take up a certain kind of discipline called a spiritual practice and just see where that takes you. Spirituality is not volitional, but taking up a spiritual practice is. What, you may ask, is a spiritual practice? We'll begin to introduce that after our interlude. I know that these days all kinds of things get called spiritual practice. So we may wonder, how exactly do we differentiate between a spiritual practice and just something that you do? Quilting, piano playing, or hiking might or might not qualify as a spiritual practice. That is, might or might not tend to produce the symptoms of developing spirituality. An activity is more likely to work as a spiritual practice if you seriously treat it as one. First, treating a practice as a spiritual practice means engaging the activity with mindfulness, focusing on the activity as you do it, with a sharp awareness of each present moment. Second, treating a practice as a spiritual practice means engaging in the activity with intention of thereby cultivating spiritual development, reflecting as you do the activity or just before or just after on your intention to manifest those symptoms of spiritual development in your life. And third, treating a practice as a spiritual practice means sometimes engaging the activity with a group that gathers expressly to do the activity in a way that cultivates spirituality, sharing each other's spiritual reflections before, during, or after doing the activity together. Fourth, and most of all, it requires establishing a foundation of spiritual openness. And there are three basic daily practices that I recommend for everyone that over time will develop a foundation upon which some other practice can grow into a real spiritual practice. Silence. I'd say 15 minutes a day being still and quiet, just bringing attention to your own amazing breathing. Journaling. 15 minutes a day writing about your gratitudes, your highest hopes, your experiences of awe. and study. 15 minutes a day reading wisdom literature, the essays of Pema Chodron or Thomas Merton, the poems of Rumi or Mary Oliver, the Tao Te Ching, the Bible's book of Psalms, just to mention a very few examples of wisdom literature. With these 3 daily practices building your foundation of spiritual awareness, then gardening or yoga or throwing pottery are much better positioned to truly be spiritual practices for you. Suppose that you got serious about maintaining a spiritual discipline. You engage your practice daily. You do it mindfully. You do it with intention to cultivate compassion, connection, non-judgmental curiosity, self-forgetfulness, transpersonal identification, and acceptance. You get together regularly with a group that helps you maintain and explore the spiritual focus of your practice, and you develop your base with daily silence, journaling, and study. What then? What will happen? If you do everything to ensure that your practice is a true, bona fide spiritual practice, and you do that spiritual practice long enough, every day for a year, or 10 years, or 30 years, will you then exude equanimity and compassion while unperturbable, calm inner peace and beauty continuously manifests as you gracefully and lovingly flow through life? Maybe. I can offer no guarantees. Spirituality, as I mentioned, is not a matter of will. Strong muscles aren't a matter of will either. That is, you can't just decide to bench press 500 pounds and then go do it. But at least with muscles, there's a fairly predictable timetable by which exercise increases strength. If you have a normal and healthy physiology and you adopt a regimen of exercise and stick to it, then you will reap the rewards of that regimen. There's a fairly smooth curve by which you'll progress toward the limit that that regimen can take you. But spiritual strengthening doesn't go like that. It's not a reliable product of putting in the time doing the exercise. The spirit has its own schedule. Committed, serious spiritual practitioners can go for years when their practice just seems void and useless. And then they can hit a patch where they actually seem to be regressing. They're acting as cranky and unkind, as disconnected and withdrawn on the one hand, or as controlling on the other, as they ever had before they started any spiritual practice. There's no smooth curve of progress. I started my primary spiritual practice for the worst reason, because an authority told me to. 22 years ago, I was in Chicago trying to pass muster to become a minister, trying to prove that I was good enough. I had just finished my first year of divinity school, and I was meeting with the Midwest Regional Subcommittee on Candidacy. "Do you have a spiritual practice?" the committee asked me. Before starting seminary, I had spent 2 years as the congregational facilitator and preacher for the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clarksville, Tennessee. Before that, I'd served as president of our fellowship in Waco, Texas, as vice president of our church in Charlottesville, Virginia, and had worked as the church secretary for a year at our Nashville, Tennessee church. But did I have a spiritual practice? I was a born and raised Unitarian Universalist. I had a PhD. I'd been a university professor of philosophy for 4 years. I could debate about metaphysics, metaethics, metatheology, post-structuralism, post-industrialism, and postmodernism. If it was meta or post, I was all over it. But did I have a spiritual practice? Well, no, I didn't. Get a spiritual practice, the committee told me. It's contradictory to take up a path of self-acceptance and trusting in my own inner wisdom because an outside authority told me to, yet that's what I did. It's contradictory to judge myself for judging myself too much. Yet that's what I did and still do, albeit somewhat more gently, usually. I've now had a chance to talk with a number of people on a path of serious spiritual practice, and all of us, or so it seems, began as I did in some form of contradiction. We felt broken, wrong, inadequate. We thought spiritual practice would fix us. But spiritual practice isn't about fixing anything, which is why there's no smooth curve toward becoming fixed. Spiritual awakening is about realizing that we aren't broke and don't need fixing. We aren't broken and from the beginning never have been. Earlier, I listed some symptoms of developing spirituality, increased this and decreased that, and I mentioned Cloninger's measures of spirituality, self-forgetfulness, transpersonal identification, and acceptance. Do not, however, imagine that these are the goals of spiritual practice. Any practice that has a goal is not a spiritual practice. Yes, there is a role to play for intending to cultivate those qualities, but it's a rather small role, and attempting to measure progress toward such qualities is a delusion. A spiritual practice will tend, naturally on its own, but irregularly and unpredictably, to bring fuller recognition that we aren't broken, that we are whole and perfect just as we are and always have been, and fuller recognition of our intrinsic wholeness will tend, naturally on its own, but irregularly and unpredictably, to bring those symptoms of developing spirituality. It's hard to really believe that we aren't broken and don't need fixing. Our culture constantly tells us we aren't good enough. Get better, buy this product, this treatment, this school, this exercise, this method. Spirituality is about remembering the fact of abundance in the midst of the daily barrage of messages of scarcity. Will recognition of abundance happen if you do the practice? I can tell you there will be more ups and downs than the stock market. But over the long haul, probably yes. If you love just doing the practice, and you do it because it's who you are, and not with any idea that you're gaining something from it. If judgment about gain and loss, progress and regress falls away, and there's just you, loving who you are and loving the way you and the whole universe manifest in and through your practice, then yes, the fact of abundance is now clearer to you. We are doomed, and our time here is short, but we can make it a celebration. You may have recognized the picture on the front of today's order of service. It's from the 1964 film Dr. Strangelove. At the end of that film, a bomber plane is set to release its nuclear payload, which will set off a nuclear conflagration to end civilization. But the release mechanism jams, and Slim Pickens climbs down into the bomb bay to fix the jam. He succeeds, and the bomb is released while he's sitting on it. In the film's most memorable shot, Slim Pickens is waving his cowboy hat and whooping as he rides the bomb down to his and what will ultimately be the planet's destruction. Woo-hoo! Maybe that's what spirituality looks like. He does seem to be living in the moment. That was such a striking shot when I first saw it as a teenager, because I knew if I were falling out of the sky riding on a nuclear bomb, I would be freaked out in fear and despair. My God, my God, my God, I've got maybe 1 minute to live. But look at what Slim Pickens' character is doing with his 1 minute. Woo-hoo! All of us are riding that bomb. Our time is so short before life will blow up on us. And there's something very pure about this fact. We get just this one chance at every minute, every moment. This is it. Amen.
Wrong script. For our closing hymn, please rise as you're willing and able. We're singing 1028. Thanks for that dance. Hey. Please say with me our unison chalice extinguishing words. Ready? Mindful of our highest aspirations, bound by common faith and purpose, and yet beginning with ourselves as we are, let us take one more step together in our unending quest for dignity, justice, and love.
I say one more thing. It is here, and it is now, and here we are. So this is it. Go in peace.